Brought to you by...
Isolation can be a dangerous thing. Enough time spent alone, while tranquil and ruminative, it also can cause us to dwell in our thoughts, sinking into the depths of despair and loneliness, without knowingly surrendering to the embrace of madness. Hello friends, and welcome back to ETF. ENYS MEN is an experimental folk horror film written and directed by Mark Jenkin, known for his work on Bait in 2019. The title translates to Stone Island in Cornish, reflecting the film's setting and themes of isolation, nature, and folklore. Set in 1973 on a remote, uninhabited island off the Cornish coast, ENYS MEN follows a nameless woman referred to as the Volunteer, played by Mary Woodvine, who monitors a rare flower as part of a scientific study. Her daily routine involves taking notes, dropping a stone down an abandoned mine shaft, and observing the flower's growth. However, her isolation begins to blur the lines between reality and hallucination, as she experiences strange visions involving people from the island's past, including miners, a preacher, and a girl in white. Shot on grainy 16mm film, ENYS MEN has a tactile, vintage aesthetic that enhances its haunting and timeless quality. The film's cinematography employs long, lingering shots of the landscape, capturing the desolation and beauty of the island. The lack of modern digital effects and reliance on practical techniques add to its eerie, authentic feel. The production of ENYS MEN was deeply rooted in Mark Jenkin's artistic philosophy and his passion for Cornish culture, history, and folklore. Following the critical success of Bait, Jenkin wanted to create a project that further explored his connection to Cornwall, blending its landscapes, folklore, and historical resonance with experimental storytelling. He envisioned ENYS MEN as a Cornish folk horror, inspired by British folklore films like The Wicker Man, and the minimalist storytelling of Tarkovsky and Bergman. The film is a love letter to Cornwall, drawing from its isolated coastal settings, mining history, and spiritual folklore. The story reflects Jenkin's interest in exploring time, memory, and the relationship between humans and the environment. The film was shot entirely on location in Cornwall, primarily on the rugged cliffs and moorlands of Penwith's Peninsula. The locations were remote and difficult to access, adding authenticity to the setting and refining the sense of isolation that pervades the film. The production embraced the natural beauty and harshness of Cornwall, with the changing weather and rugged terrain playing a crucial role in shaping the film's tone and visuals. Jenkins used 16mm Kodak film to create a grainy vintage look, reminiscent of 1970s cinema, lending the film a timeless and tactile quality. The choice of analog film emphasized the organic connection between the story and its environment, enhancing a sense of place and atmosphere. As with Bait, Jenkin hand-processed the film, using a Bolex camera and a personal darkroom, giving the footage an intentional raw and textured appearance. The imperfections in the film stock added to the eerie, dreamlike quality of the visuals. The film avoided CGI, instead relying on all practical effects, in-camera techniques, and meticulous sound design to create a haunting and surreal atmosphere. Speaking of the sound design, it played a pivotal role in establishing the film's unsettling atmosphere. Instead of a traditional score, Jenkin relied on diegetic sounds like wind, waves, footsteps, and creaking doors. The sparse soundscape heightened the film's sense of isolation and dread. Jenkins recorded much of the audio himself, often using unconventional methods to create an organic and haunting sound design. The narrative unfolds in a non-linear, dreamlike structure, with a mix of eerie silence, unsettling sounds, and haunting imagery. The lack of dialogue and traditional storytelling creates an ambiguous, atmospheric experience, where viewers piece together the story themselves. The themes in ENYS MEN are intricate, exploring humanity's connection to nature, time, isolation, and the power of memory. The film's ambiguity allows for multiple interpretations, with its narrative and visuals leaving much to the viewer's imagination. The film places the protagonist in complete solitude on a remote Cornish island, reflecting themes of isolation and the psychological toll it takes. The protagonist's days are defined by her repetitive tasks and lack of human interactions. This isolation creates a sense of timelessness, as days and routines blur together. As time progresses, her solitude leads to hallucinations and visions, blurring those lines between reality and imagination. Her isolation becomes not just physical, but emotional, highlighting the fragility of the human psyche in solitude. Time in this film is not linear, but circular, reinforcing themes of repetition, history, and eternal recurrence. The protagonist's rituals, dropping stones, checking the flowers, and recording temperatures, mirror an endless loop, reflecting the idea of life and death as interconnected cycles. The film merges past, present, and future, suggesting that time on this island exists in layers. Ghostly figures from Cornwall's mining past and the modern-day protagonist coexist, implying that history is imprinted on the landscape. The protagonist's study of the rare flower growing on the island is a central motif, reflecting on humanity's fragile connection to the natural world. The flowers, thriving in isolation, symbolize nature's resilience and indifference to the human presence. The protagonist's meticulous observation of the flowers suggests reverence, but also a futile attempt to impose order on something beyond human control. The film critiques humanity's attempts to dominate or study nature without understanding its mysteries. The island itself becomes a sort of liminal space, where the protagonist's memories and the land's history intermingle. The ghostly appearances may represent the protagonist's personal past, or the collective memory of the island itself. Figures from different eras, such as miners, sailors, appear, suggesting a connection to Cornwall's layered history. The visuals could reflect unresolved guilt or trauma, either personal or tied to the island's historical tragedies. For example, the recurring image of the girl in white hints at a personal loss that haunts the protagonist. The film treats memory as physical, embedded in the land. The island becomes a character, holding on to the history and projecting it onto our protagonist. This film is steeped in Cornish folklore and draws on spiritual and ritualistic elements. The protagonist's daily tasks feel like acts of devotion or offerings to the island. These actions sort of mirror ancient rituals that connect humans to the land. The film portrays the island as a mythical, almost spiritual place, where the boundary between natural and supernatural is thin. The volunteer's role may resemble that of a priestess or caretaker in a larger, unknowable ritual. The ghostly apparitions could represent the spirits of the past inhabitants, acting as protectors of the land, or as warnings to the living. Their presence reinforces the folkloric sense of the past bleeding into the present. The themes of morality and rebirth permeate the film, symbolized by the flowers and dropping the stone into the well. The rare flower's vibrant red hue suggests life and vitality, but they also sort of hint at blood and sacrifice. Their growth amidst the barren landscape emphasizes the coexistence of life and death. Dropping stones down a mine shaft may symbolize an offering to the dead, or a connection to the land's industrial past. The act could represent a spiritual acknowledgement of history, or an attempt to commune with the dead. At its core, ENYS MEN is an exploration of existential questions about purpose, reality, and the human condition. The protagonist's experiences on the island could represent her descent into madness, a spiritual awakening, or the island's supernatural influence. The ambiguity forces the viewers to question what is real. The film grapples with what it means to exist in isolation, stripped of social connections. The protagonist's actions reflect an attempt to find meaning in her solitude, even as it ultimately consumes her. Well, friends, that's gonna be all for now. If you like this video, as always, I urge you to go check out this film for yourself. It is available on Netflix, and if there is a physical release, I will link it down below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe for more content, and if you'd really like to help support this channel, please come find us on Patreon. Until next time, stay safe, don't spend too much time in isolation, and as always, thanks for watching.